Hi everyone, my name is Gladys and I'm a scholarship officer with MFA. Welcome to Women in Diplomacy Future Stories. Today I have here with me Shirah. Hi Shirah.
Hi Gladys.
Tell us a little bit more about what you do in MFA.
Okay, so I'm currently the Deputy Director at the International Organizations Directorate, where I oversee the Climate Change and Sustainable Development branch. Before that, I was posted to Cairo, Egypt for 3 years. And my first 2 desks in MFA were with the North America side and also ASEAN.
You mentioned that you were posted to Cairo for a while. Could you share more about your experience there, being a female officer in Cairo?
Right, it's not easy being a female diplomat or a female, in the Middle East because it obviously has a very male-dominated culture. On top of that, I think when I arrived in Egypt for the first time in September 2013, it was just coming out of its second political upheaval.
Right.
So things were a bit messy. There were roadblocks and tanks on the streets and stuff like that. So it was definitely a bit of a shock coming from Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
But you realize you have to learn very quickly, like you have to adapt your behavior. You really have no choice but to be street smart and to be really resourceful. For example, if I was taking a taxi somewhere and I was unfamiliar with the location, I had to make sure I had a backup plan, or I had to know where I was going, where my destination was, text a friend, for example. You just have to be really aware of your surroundings. On top of that, in work life as well, you have to be a lot more assertive and to get what you want, to get things done. And then, you just also have to deal with the daily challenges. So like one time it was in the middle of winter in Cairo, and I remember coming back from like a really long, tiring day of work, and my apartment had A, no electricity, and B, no water. And it was like 9 p.m. or something. So I remember just like lighting a candle and sitting in my living room freezing and just like head in my hand. It was one of those low points for me, especially if you hadn't been home, for a long time. One time I came back and my apartment, the kitchen in my apartment was completely flooded because the pipe had burst. And there was stuff floating around. And I nearly got electrocuted trying to turn off the fridge.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I look back on these feelings, I have like a lot of nostalgia for Egypt. It's really strange. Like while you're living through it, you're like, okay, why is my life so difficult? But then you come back and you're like, every posting actually really changes you. I think postings change MFA officers for life. You become a different person. For me, I learned to become more resilient. I learned to become a lot more independent, a lot more sure of myself. And at the same time, I feel like I was able to get through a lot of this because I had a lot of support from my then ambassador, my colleagues at Post. I kind of enjoyed my time there as a young 20-something person. And I feel like, I like to think that in some way I did contribute to Singapore-Egypt relations.
Also earlier you mentioned that Egypt is a very male-dominated society. And I would imagine that there are probably very few female officers in the Cairo mission. Do you feel like you had to live up to a certain expectation, being a female officer posted there?
I never once felt like, I couldn't perform the job because I was female. Or if I ever had doubt that I couldn't perform it, it was like a challenge to myself, like, who says I can't? Okay. I'm going to do it anyway. So, obviously well within the boundaries of safety and all this, but with my male colleagues, they were also very respectful. They understood, if I needed help, if I needed them to maybe give me a ride home or make sure I was safe. They were there for me. So, it was a good working environment, and we kind of got along very well. I think what really helped was there were also other female diplomats from other embassies in Cairo. And so we got along quite well. At some point, I also started female diplomat drinks. Like a little club for female diplomats. We even had speakers come on an informal basis after work and just hang out together, and some of them are still my really good friends today. We still keep in touch. Yeah, so we have very shared experiences. Yeah,
that's great. I think it's really important, especially when you're posting, to find that support system or to get with friends. But it sounds really challenging just being in, at a place where you don't know when the electricity in your apartment might go out.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with all the other issues like flooding in your kitchen and all that. So, what do you think about the role of women in diplomacy and in MFA? What would you say? How women contribute?
I think one of my favorite role models for female diplomats is actually Madeleine Albright, former US Secretary of State. And she has, I think, this saying that says, there's like no place in the world for mediocre women. If you want to make your mark, you have to be prepared to interrupt. But if you're going to interrupt, make sure you know what you're talking about. Right? So I think that applies not just to women in diplomacy, but women everywhere, in any part of the workforce. Like, I feel like MFA is generally a very fair place to be in as a female officer. Primarily because, I've personally never felt like I couldn't speak up or that my views weren't being heard. But of course, there are areas and things that can be improved upon. And I think in general, women, we juggle a lot of things. In MFA, like a lot of the female officers do give up a lot in their private lives to be able to do their work. It's not easy. So, I think it takes a lot of strength. And I think a lot of the women here, including a lot of my bosses who are like female and they're also my role models, I think they've done an excellent job.
So what do you think would be, the most memorable experience or moment that, you've had while working in MFA?
One of the more exciting ones was meeting Jason Momoa. The other more memorable experiences, I think work-wise, fangirling aside, has to be 2 years ago when I was attached to New York mission, which is our permanent mission to the UN for the 74th UN General Assembly. That's where you really have to learn how to stand up for yourself, speak up for yourself, because you're sort of thrust into a negotiating room and you have to negotiate over a resolution or a document, and you have, all eyes on you. You're facing down a room full of delegates with many more years of experience than you. And so that's also quite nerve-wracking. But I think I remembered two phrases. I think it was just wing it. And you kind of have to take the floor and act like you know what you're talking about. And then it gets crossed really easily. And then you get the hang of it. One time I remembered it was also during the UN General Assembly, and that was the year that PM went for the first time. During the high-level week, the UN headquarters, it can be quite messy, so everyone's running everywhere. I remember being like squashed into a lift because I was going to another meeting, and everyone just started piling in, and I was in the corner like this, and then I looked up, and I think that was like the Prime Minister of Luxembourg right next to me like this. So he looks down and he's like, Singapore! And I was like, hi, Prime Minister. He's like, say hi to your PM for me. And then I was like, sure, I'll do that. but it was kind of nice to have someone sort of notice you and recognize your country and your badge and stuff like that. So it kind of made me feel a bit proud as well. It was kind of, it was quite a nice feeling.
Yeah. What about some, interesting experiences in HQ in Singapore? Something that you would still bring up whenever you talk to your friends about your work in MFA?
Well, one thing that some of my good friends and who are now still MFA colleagues or ex-MFA colleagues will never let go is the fact that I organised a car rally.
A car rally?
I think it was the 20th anniversary. I can't recall exactly, but there was a proposal to have a car rally involving the 10 ASEAN member states and India to commemorate ASEAN-India relations, starting off from Singapore all the way through Southeast Asia and up to India. Yeah. So because we were the starting point, it involved everything from flying in the drivers and the participants, setting up the flag off point, arrange for fueling of the cars, flag off, t-shirts, you name it, like school kids to wave off the parade, getting traffic police to, demarcate the driving route all the way to the causeway before they go into Malaysia. And then on top of that, we also had to help organize a business seminar on the side. So the ASEAN-India car rally was like, at some point I'm like, I didn't sign up for this, but okay, let's just roll with it and see where it goes.
Thank you very much for sharing, Shirah. It was very interesting to hear all your cool stories and crazy adventures at Post.